For decades, Catherine O'Hara slipped into America's living rooms without ever demanding the spotlight. She made you laugh, made you feel seen, and then quietly stepped aside while others chased fame. But behind that effortless warmth was a life shaped by rare, long-lasting bonds in an industry famous for broken friendships and short memories. O'Hara didn't just survive Hollywood, she outlasted it by doing something radical. She chose people over power, trust over ego, and depth over noise. From comedy stages in Toronto to global box office hits, every turning point in her career was driven by one relationship that changed the next chapter of her life. These were not casual co-stars. They were partners, protectors, and in one unforgettable case, family. And once you see how these 5 connections shaped her fate, you'll realize Catherine O'Hara's real legacy was never the roles she played. It was the lives she quietly changed along the way. And the first name on that list explains everything. Christopher Guest entered Catherine O'Hara's life at a moment when she no longer needed to prove she was funny. By the time they began working together, she was already respected, already established. But Guest didn't want polish, he wanted truth. His mockumentary films stripped actors of scripts, safety nets, and vanity. For many performers, that environment was terrifying. For O'Hara, it was liberating. Guest's method demanded something radical. You had to trust yourself completely or you would fail on camera. There were outlines, not scripts. Characters were born through instinct, not instruction. This forced O'Hara to lean on the one thing she had spent her life refining: emotional honesty. The result was a series of performances that didn't mock odd people, but humanized them. In films like Waiting for Guffman and Best in Show, O'Hara created characters so absurd on the surface, yet so sincere underneath that audiences found themselves laughing and aching at the same time. This was not accidental. It was the product of Guest's trust and her refusal to play characters with contempt. That collaboration reshaped how critics viewed her. She was no longer a great comedic actress. She was a character artist with depth. And once she crossed that threshold, Hollywood could no longer reduce her to punchlines. Michael Keaton's relationship with Catherine O'Hara began almost accidentally. In the original Beetlejuice, they orbited the same strange universe without truly colliding. Yet decades later, when they reunited, something remarkable surfaced. Familiarity without fatigue. Keaton brought raw, unpredictable energy to every set. He improvised wildly, shifted moods instantly, and challenged everyone around him to stay alert. For some actors, that kind of presence is exhausting. For O'Hara, it was invigorating. She understood instinctual performers because she was one herself. What made their connection unique wasn't romance or rivalry, but mutual fascination. O'Hara loved watching Keaton move between himself and his character, fascinated by how freely he shed ego. Keaton, in turn, admired her fearlessness, her willingness to be strange without asking permission. Over time, that professional admiration grew into something quieter and deeper: real friendship. When Keaton later spoke about O'Hara after her passing, he didn't list credits or accolades. He spoke like someone who had lost a constant, someone who had shared a lifetime of moments, not just movies. Their bond reminds us that the most powerful connections in Hollywood often happen later, when ambition fades and authenticity finally takes center stage. Tim Burton offered Catherine O'Hara something rare in Hollywood: creative safety. From the moment they collaborated on Beetlejuice, she knew she could leap without fear of ridicule. Burton's worlds were strange, exaggerated, and emotionally risky, but he protected his actors fiercely. That protection allowed O'Hara to stretch herself beyond realism into stylized performances that still felt grounded. She trusted Burton because he trusted her, and that trust extended beyond the screen. During filming, O'Hara found herself stuck in a familiar emotional limbo, being noticed but not chosen. Frustrated, she vented to Burton. What followed wasn't cinematic drama, but quiet intervention. Burton nudged production designer Bo Welch to finally ask her out. That small push changed her personal life forever. Welch became her husband. Burton became an unlikely architect of her happiness. Their collaboration became symbolic of something larger. When creative environments are safe, life has room to grow. Years later, when O'Hara returned for Beetlejuice, it felt less like a sequel and more like a reunion. Proof that some relationships don't age, they deepen. Macaulay Culkin entered Catherine O'Hara's life as a child actor at the peak of sudden fame. On screen, she played his mother. Off screen, she quietly became something close to one. During Home Alone, O'Hara noticed something most adults missed. Culkin's professionalism masked vulnerability. She treated him not as a star, but as a child navigating chaos. That care planted a bond that refused to fade. As Culkin's life grew turbulent in adulthood, many figures from his childhood disappeared. O'Hara didn't. She remained steady, present, familiar. Decades later, Culkin still called her Mom. Not for nostalgia, for truth. When she spoke at his Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony, her words carried maternal weight. She didn't praise his fame, she praised his intelligence, his humor, his survival. And when she passed away, Culkin's grief was raw and unfiltered. Their relationship proves that sometimes the most lasting Hollywood families are formed by accident and held together by choice. Eugene Levy was never simply another name in Catherine O'Hara's long list of collaborators. He was the anchor, before awards, before global recognition, before Hollywood ever took notice. They learned to survive together at Second City in Toronto, a place where failure was public, brutal, and unavoidable. In that environment, ego didn't last long, but trust did. That trust became the foundation of everything that followed. They never competed for the spotlight because they understood something most performers learn too late. Shared attention lasts longer than stolen focus. Levy offered O'Hara a rare gift in a restless industry: creative stability. With him, she could take risks without fear, fail without punishment, and grow without being discarded. Over decades, their connection evolved into an unspoken language, a rhythm audiences could feel even if they couldn't name it. Their partnership revealed a quiet but powerful truth about longevity. Careers don't endure because of endless reinvention alone. They endure because one person stays when the rest of the world moves on. When you step back and look at Catherine O'Hara's most important relationships as a whole, a clear pattern emerges, one that's easy to miss in an industry obsessed with dramatic arcs and sudden breakthroughs. She didn't build her career through dominance, disruption, or burning bridges. She built it through continuity. Each collaboration followed the same cause and effect path. Trust created safety. Safety allowed creative freedom, and freedom unlocked emotional depth. That depth, in turn, created permanence. O'Hara never chased relevance or trends. She cultivated connection. In a business driven by ego, she practiced restraint. In a culture obsessed with youth, she valued time, experience, and memory. That is why her work aged with grace instead of fading. And that is why her passing felt so personal to so many. People didn't just admire her talent, they trusted her presence. When someone like that is gone, the absence is louder than applause ever was. Catherine O'Hara's legacy cannot be measured by box office numbers, awards, or iconic roles alone. It lives in the people she changed simply by staying, by listening, by showing up when it wasn't required or rewarded. In an industry built on transactions, she offered consistency. In a world that often mistakes visibility for value, she proved that character lasts longer than attention. Her story reminds us of a truth that resonates more deeply with time. Careers may be built on talent, but lives are remembered by integrity. She mattered because she made others feel safe, seen, and respected on and off the screen. Long after the laughter fades and the credits roll, what remains is not the joke or the performance, but the human connection behind it. And that is why Catherine O'Hara is not just remembered, she is missed. In the end, Catherine O'Hara's story is not simply the story of a successful actress. It is the story of how a life unfolds when talent is guided by character and ambition is tempered by humanity. In an industry that rewards noise, speed, and self-promotion, O'Hara chose a slower, quieter path, and somehow, that path carried her further than most. She didn't dominate Hollywood. She endured it. And endurance, it turns out, is the rarer achievement. What her life teaches us is deceptively simple. Careers rise and fall on timing, luck, and opportunity. But legacies are built on how we treat people when no one is watching. O'Hara stayed loyal in a business that encourages disposability. She listened in a culture that talks over itself. She returned phone calls, remembered names, and honored shared history. Those choices didn't always make headlines, but they built something far more lasting: trust. For audiences who have lived long enough to see trends come and go, her journey resonates deeply. It reminds us of a time when success was measured not just by visibility, but by respect. When collaborations lasted decades, not contracts. When aging wasn't something to hide, but something that added texture and credibility. O'Hara aged in public without apology, and in doing so, she gave permission for others to do the same. Her legacy also reframes how we think about fame. She proved that you don't have to be the loudest voice in the room to be unforgettable. You don't have to chase relevance if you cultivate meaning. The people who loved working with her didn't speak about her awards first. They spoke about how she made them feel. Safe, valued, understood. That is influence in its purest form. And perhaps the most powerful lesson of all is this: the relationships you protect will eventually protect you. When Catherine O'Hara left this world, she didn't leave quietly. She left surrounded by gratitude, affection, and genuine grief, not because she demanded loyalty, but because she earned it. That is the kind of legacy no algorithm can manufacture. So as we reflect on her life, the question becomes personal. What kind of mark are we trying to leave? One built on attention, or one built on connection? One that fades with time, or one that deepens as years pass? If Catherine O'Hara's story moved you, take a moment to reflect and then act. Share your favorite memory of her in the comments. Tell us which role stayed with you the longest, and why. If stories like this matter to you, stories with depth, honesty, and real human meaning, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because preserving these legacies isn't just about remembering the past. It's about choosing what kind of future we value.